Get rolling. First of all, welcome to our episode 3 of the Natural Resources webinar series. I am an AmeriCorps volunteer, a Conservation Corps volunteer working with the Regional Sustainable Development Partnership, supporting the natural resources focus area. I believe most of you attending are part of the RSDP already, but just in case we need a little refresher, the RSDP exists to connect community-driven projects with university resources. And to that end, I started organizing these webinars to help our work group members and board members become better acquainted with the university resources that we have the potential to partner with and who are doing good work in the same sort of end as we are reaching for. So this is our third one. As I said, we've heard from the Water Resources Center, CINRAM, and now today we'll be hearing from Jessica Hellmann from the I Any, the Institute on the Environment, as well as a RSDP supported project, Project Get Outdoors, which is involved in the Northwest and the Southeast region. So we'll be hearing about that project, kind of trying to celebrate our successes and think about ways that we've made an impact in our communities. So a couple things to note. This session is being recorded. It will be available on the Google site, RSDP webinar site. The link is at the bottom of the screen on that webinar opener page that you should see on your screen. You can find that link to the recorded webinar later to share or review. You can also at that home site find links to get more information about these awesome organizations and more things that are happening with RSDP. Awesome. Well, Jessica, I see you're all connected there. I'm going to pass the presenter ball to you, and while you're getting loaded, I will read a little bit of an introduction for you.
Super.
Okay, awesome. Jessica Hellmann is the director of the Institute on the Environment at the University of Minnesota. As director, she provides overall strategic leadership for the Institute, an internationally recognized organization working to solve grand environmental challenges while promoting interdisciplinary research, teaching, and leadership across the university, and engaging external partners and stakeholders. Sounds like wonderful work. I'm excited to hear more. Thank you, Jessica.
So, Rose, what do you see on your screen for me?
I see a page with trees reflected in water.
Great. You don't see the presenter notes. You actually see the slide, what looks like a slide.
Yep.
Great. Okay. Then I think we might be good to go.
Awesome.
Well, thank you, Rose, so much for the chance to talk to this audience, and thank you to all of you online for checking in this morning. As Rose suggested, I'm Jessica Hellmann. I'm director of the Institute on the Environment at the University of Minnesota, which is a university-wide institute. So we service the Twin Cities campus. We're located on the St. Paul campus. But we also work with every campus of the University of Minnesota, Duluth, Morris, all of them are part of I Any's sort of duty and responsibilities at the university. So it's great to be here, and I want to, in my presentation today, I'm going to introduce I Any, or as we call it, Institute on the Environment, shortened to I On E. I'm going to share a little bit about our vision for the future, and then I'll talk a little bit about how we might all work together to advance solutions to environmental challenges here in Minnesota. And I'll take this moment to double check, Rose. Can you hear me okay? Am I sound good? Oh, she's probably on mute.
Hey, that's good. Yeah, it sounds great. I can hear you perfectly. Good. And actually, I forgot to mention, any attendees who are listening and have questions, you can enter those questions for Jessica in the chat box on the right-hand side of your screen, and we'll have time for questions after her presentation.
Wonderful. I once gave a webinar where I didn't do that check, like, can you hear me and can you see everything? And I proceeded to talk for a half an hour and no one no one was there or could hear a single word. So I have since learned to check in periodically to make sure everything's okay.
Yeah, it can be a little eerie because, yeah, you can't hear the response from others.
That's right. All right, so by way of explaining the Institute on the Environment, I want to sort of tell a little story here at the beginning, and I want to ask this question, how can we create a future in which people and the environment prosper together? This is essentially the central dilemma or the question that I Any aims to answer and is working every day hard to answer, just like many of you are as well. Probably all of you are. So in many respects, we sit sort of at a great moment in history. The world, as we know it, is changing, as this slide suggests, and that activities that benefit our environment take place every single day now. A few examples here. Our energy landscape is becoming transformed as solar and wind and other forms of clean energy move into the mainstream here in Minnesota, become more and more cost-effective in a larger fraction of our energy usage. Food production is becoming smarter and more sustainable, also something very important to us here in the state of Minnesota. And we can, as we work to meet our own food needs, but a global population, we're getting smarter about making agriculture both productive and more environmentally responsible. Appreciation for nature is really growing and thriving as young people continue to discover, sometimes in new ways, in different kinds of ways, from your own backyard or farm field to remote wild lands, of which we still have quite a few and are very important to our identity here in Minnesota. And millions of people around the world are gaining access to electricity and new economic opportunities through renewable sources and environmentally responsible ways of doing business. We're building better organizations, including RSDP, that are increasingly effective at engaging across sectors and communities to tackle environmental problems. And just this past December, the world came together in Paris to sign a historic agreement to limit carbon dioxide and other greenhouse gas emissions for building a more sustainable future. So all of these remind us that transformation is not only possible, but it's already happening. But still, there are big challenges that face the world today and Minnesota. So we need, for example, to dramatically increase our efforts to reduce carbon emissions. We have goals, but an uncertain path to get there. We need to slow biodiversity loss because essential ecosystem services and numerous plants and animals are being lost and are important to humanity and important to our stewardship obligations. We need to boost communities' abilities to anticipate and thrive in the face of changing environments and extreme weather. We need to safeguard our food supply without harming the environment. And we probably have to prepare for a world where the environment is causing increasing migration of people and demographic change. Now this slide illustrates that globally, the World Economic Forum recently surveyed 750 global stakeholders, so these are corporate and government leaders, and asked them to identify their issues of greatest concern for the next 10 years. And these are their top 5. And I want you to see that every one of these risks has an environmental connection. And so this suggests that there's quite a bit of need to, but also demand for environmental solutions. So that we might say that we need to build then on the positive changes that are already underway while accelerating progress toward solutions and preparing for uncertainties that lie ahead. And these are sort of key philosophies to how we see environmental issues at the Institute on the Environment. We also believe that the future is not yet set in stone and that together we create the future and the path or paths to that future in an interdisciplinary way and in a way that engages with society. So this is where I Any aims to make its difference. We are responsible for imagining and achieving a future that's possible but not yet realized. That leads to a mission statement. The mission of I Any is to lead the way toward a future where people and the environment prospers together, toward answering that question on our first slide, my first slide. And our strategy to accomplishing this is to bring university faculty, staff, and students across multiple disciplines together with external partners to create and carry out tangible solutions to pressing environmental challenges. Now, we do this in a way that we say is not your university as usual. We are charged with going out of our way to be collaborative and bring different academic fields together, while also being responsive to issues that are actually emerging and evolving out there in the real world, being agile, a small unit that can make adjustments in strategy relatively quickly, and very entrepreneurial, working hard to identify novel ways of getting thoughts and ideas and practices out into application. So our secret sauce, if you will, is our ability to connect innovators from around the university with external partners to drive solutions. And we do this in 3 interconnected areas. Discovery, which you might think of as research, what we call preparing leaders, which is part of leadership development and some curricular activities, which includes formal education, but lots of informal leadership development for faculty, students, and staff, and then engaging partners. Crossing boundaries and constantly mixing ideas inside and outside the university around environmental themes. And we think it's working pretty well. So since I Any was established in 2008, we've informed land use decisions to sustainably feed a growing global population. We've collaborated with industry partners on supply chain sustainability. We've developed tools for assessing and valuing ecosystem services. We've worked to better understand the impacts of biofuels on the environment. We've reached a global audience through innovative communications. I'll talk about that more in a moment. And we've advised industry and international commodity consortia on how to reduce water consumption and much more. So at present, our work is focused on these broad thematic areas: global ag and land use, renewable energy, valuing nature or ecosystem services, or nature-based solutions, climate resilience and adaptation in the urban environment and in natural environments, including natural resource management, sustainable enterprise, supply chain and whatnot, ways in which industry can become more sustainable, and water productivity, how to become more water use efficient and enjoy environmental benefits as a consequence. So I'd like to share a few just stories to illustrate the impact that we've had in some of these areas, and hopefully will spur some ideas of ways that we might be able to collaborate or interact. So the first is a story from something called our Natural Capital Project, and that's a 10-year partnership between I Any and the University of Minnesota, Stanford University, and the Nature Conservancy and the World Wildlife Fund. The Natural Capital Project has changed global thinking and practice around the economics of nature, or how to think of the economic value of nature. For example, the value of a forest sequestering carbon, or healthy ecosystems providing clean water. And this team works around the globe, but an example close to home revolves around the Mississippi River watershed and increasing water security for cities and towns across the state. And this example work involves helping the Nature Conservancy through their recently announced $10 million Minnesota Headwaters Fund to ensure clean water to Minnesota's lakes and rivers by investing in stream banks and forests and wetlands. Many of you probably know this program very well. So the TNC is using a free and open source software developed by the Natural Capital Project called Invest, which is a toolkit that is being used in 85 countries around the world. But in Minnesota, we're using this to help identify which values of nature and benefits of restoration or protection are most likely to derive the greatest value. So that is shaping investments in Minnesota's environment and with the goal of affecting state water quality for generations to come. But the Natural Capital Project is not just focused on Minnesota, though that's very important to us. We're also, the Natural Capital Project is influencing the business case for and the development of, say, for example, water funds around the globe, this slide emphasizing cities and countries in Central and South America, where natural capital is being used to deploy natural solutions to water quality issues and water quantity issues. So my next example is something called the Global Landscapes Initiative here within INE. It's a collaboration with Fortune 500 companies, international NGOs, development banks, and others. And the goal here is to help carry out strategies for increasing food production while reducing adverse environmental impacts of agriculture. And to give you one example of this work, GLI, as we call it, has produced quite a number of high-profile published papers on yield gaps, where we ought to be able to grow more food in lands that are already dedicated to agricultural production with better agricultural and more intensified agricultural practices, with the goal of minimizing land use conversion and diminishing biodiversity as a consequence. So this information that is presented in these papers, we've also worked to translate into real-world application. For example, including describing some of these results for a public audience, like a series of articles that appeared in National Geographic, for example. And I throw in here a quote from Jerry Lynch. Some of you may know him. He's the Chief Sustainability Officer at General Mills, and he cites the Institute on the Environment and the GLI project in specific in being able to help General Mills think about its strategy and its priorities that helps them evaluate how to be more sustainable in where they source food from around the world. Now, in my next story, each year, students from different disciplines and colleges across the University of Minnesota come together to learn about environmental challenges in the classes and workshops in entrepreneurship through our a.k.a. Impact Entrepreneurship program. And this is a program that's helping to fulfill the university's Grand Challenge curriculum as well. So a.k.a. educates, trains, mentors, and just generally nurtures students that have dreams of becoming impact entrepreneurs, whether they start businesses or they use this impact entrepreneur philosophy in existing organizations. So the most successful company spin-off of a.k.a. to date is something called MyRain, and it's a supplier of irrigation products to rural farmers in India. And some of you may know that irrigation around the world accounts for about 70% of all water usage. So examining agricultural applications is a great way to improve water conservation so that water can be used for other things, not to mention improve water quality. There are two graduates, one of the College of Science and Engineering, three on the left of this slide, and Steele is a graduate of the Carlson School of Management. They used a.k.a. courses to launch MyRain in 2010. And since 2012, MyRain has worked with 1,000 retailers in India to distribute 2,500 acres of drip irrigation equipment. So that they estimate that their work, that scope, is conserving about 5 billion liters of water annually, which is equal to the annual water consumption of Rochester, Minnesota. And they recently just got a big grant from the U.S. government to expand their work further. They also employ people, 22 people in India full-time, and provide contract work for others. And in addition, they actually are a portal for Minnesota businesses, or at least one access point into India around agriculture for Minnesota businesses looking to make an entry into rural India around environmental and agricultural issues. So interestingly, still further, our researchers now here at the Institute on the Environment have been traveling to India to continue to collaborate with MyRain and to learn more about how irrigation and water use on smallholder farms works, because there are about 500 million small family farmers globally. At least that's our current estimate. So if we understand more about what their irrigation needs are and how MyRain and companies like that are or are not meeting their needs, we can extend that impact and provide even better products and services in the future. So my next example has to do with something called the North Star Initiative for Sustainable Enterprise here at the Institute on the Environment. And it was developed to analyze environmental impacts of major agricultural companies. And a couple of years ago, in collaboration with the Environmental Defense Fund, EDF, or Environmental Defense Fund, wanted to know where the largest beef, pork, and poultry companies were buying their corn in the U.S. with the goal of reducing the environmental footprint of corn farming. And so this collaboration resulted in a model soon that's being used in a variety of applications now, showing how corn actually travels through the farm-to-feed to food pipeline in the U.S. This allows us to link the movement of corn from farms to processing facilities, so we can sort of link together what environmental impacts come through the supply chain. And so EDF is using this information with their partners to improve the sustainability of this huge crop in the United States. And then my very last example has to do with something called NCA, which is a magazine that we produce here at the Institute on the Environment. NCA was created in 2013 to combat essentially what is a decline among major media outlets in coverage on the environment. And in the last couple of years, NCA has grown to become a widely respected media outlet that provides trusted news and commentary to leaders all around the world. And I would invite all of you to check out NCA.com. You can find it at NCA.com. You can also find it through the Institute on the Environment's website, which is environment.umn.edu. NCA is mostly an online media platform now, and we produce an annual print edition. So NCA has cultivated a growing network of media partners that republish their work and allow them to have very broad reach. Here's an example slide of people who are passing along, influential individuals passing along content. NCA also has a mentor program where it partners young journalists or science journalists or environment journalists with more senior writers to produce content for the platform. And this slide shows some of those 35 leading media partners that are republishing and bringing NCA stories to millions of people in more than a dozen languages around the world. And this is increasing, we hope, increasing awareness of critical environmental challenges and solutions. And these are some of the places where these have been republished. So those are just a few examples of many projects that sort of illustrate the secret sauce. Each of those projects, I hope you could see, are a little bit about research or discovering innovation, whether it be in the classroom or in application or in a more traditional research context. Leadership preparation, from mentoring young journalists to teaching young entrepreneurs or engaging partners, whether they be big environmental groups like the Nature Conservancy and World Wildlife Fund, or smallholder farmers in India, for example. So we think that since 2008, when I Any was first formed, that we've had accomplished a few things. And so I have a slide dedicated to that, that we're just getting started in some respects. As far as academic units go on campus, we're still quite young. But since 2008, we estimate that we've engaged more than 30 disciplines across the campus. This is something we're aiming to increase here under my leadership. We've funded more than 50 exploratory research projects with new funding opportunities coming out soon, specifically in the area of renewable energy and how energy interfaces with other environmental challenges. More than 200 private and nonprofit sector collaborators that we consider our partners. We've accessed more than 1,000 students through education and leadership programs like a.k.a. that I described, also our graduate training program called Boreas. And we think we've been successful in using our resources to leverage outside support, depending on how you count millions of dollars that I Any investments have helped to garner for the university as a whole. So as we look to, and millions of people, of course, through And that is a staggering number, but true. When you add up all the clicks on NCACCOM media content, it's literally millions of individuals. As we look to the future, we know that we have to continue to be nimble because the next grand challenge or big issue is still to be determined. You know, I was saying recently to some people, a few years ago, we were just starting to talk about climate change adaptation, for example, and ecosystem services, and now these are relatively mainstream concepts, and they take up a lot of time and energy here at the Institute. So I mentioned these core research areas already, and we're going to continue to focus in these areas, but we also need to be strategic about looking to new emerging fields. And we're exploring opportunities such as, and I referenced the granting opportunities that are going to be coming out soon around clean energy, that engage technology policy law, as well as, science and engineering together with law and policy. And we seek to do this in collaboration with local and regional partners. We're looking to increase our work on climate adaptation and community resilience, which is my particular area of emphasis, and specifically my work examines often how natural resource management is affected by climate change and how we can adapt to natural resource practices to a changing climate. So I do also work to a certain degree in the urban environment. And we're expanding our efforts on One Health, or where human and animal health intersect as it's related to environmental quality. We're also working on ways to reinvigorate and improve our educational programs, including that graduate leadership program I mentioned called Boreas. And we here at the Institute on the Environment administer the University Sustainability Minor, which is constantly a work on progress. We're seeking to reach more students and provide more enriching educational opportunities for them. And we seek to expand the support that we provide to budding social entrepreneurs through our AmeriCorps program. And we are constantly looking for ways to expand the reach and the impact of our media platform, including, for example, growing that mentoring program and supporting aspiring communicators. So let me turn for just a moment to what I think are some places where the RSDP and I Any intersect, or how resources that we might have in ways in which you all are a resource for us here on the Twin Cities campus. So first, I think that the RSDP is potentially valuable and very important to I Any because it's an example, and to the degree that we can collaborate with you, is yet another example of that commitment to discovering solution, preparing leaders, and engaging partners. This is also what you all are pursuing and something we see as our special sauce, so we'd like to learn from you all. On this slide, I highlight just a few resources at the Institute on the Environment that are available online that might be valuable to some of you today. Perhaps you know of them, perhaps not. One is the software for natural capital decision-making, or sort of ways of software platform for helping to think about how to incorporate natural solutions into environmental planning, called Invest, and that can be found at the Natural Capital Project website, which you can also link to through our Institute website, but there's how you can find your way directly on this slide to Invest. Another thing that might matter is, or might be interesting to you, is something called Food Matters. It's a report that we produce specifically around food issues and agricultural issues and how those relate to environmental conservation, environmental protection. And you might also be interested in the Sustainability Minor or various activities associated with sustainability education. And the portal for what we call SustEd is at susteducation.umn.edu with a variety of events and opportunities around campus that involve the Institute on the Environment. And then finally, potentially the most useful part of I Any to you all might be the expertise that you can find here on a wide range of environmental topics. So we have faculty fellows and staff scientists from many, many fields, and we are one place where the partners around the state of Minnesota can make a connection to that wide range of people. And we're about ready to launch a new website, I hope next week, and that new website will allow for even better searching of our affiliates and experts, But even now, you can on our people page, you can find folks who might be useful to you, and I would be eager to help serve as a go-between or a finder, if you will, of expertise at the U that might be relevant to you in your work. And in closing, I thank you again for the opportunity to talk with you all and to help make connections with you across the state. I hope that you will think of the Institute of the Environment as you pursue your work. And I hope that I get to meet some of you in person someday. And though this is a lovely way to communicate and certainly to convey information, but it's not a great way to get to know one another and to really share ideas. So I hope we'll get to continue this dialogue elsewhere on another time. And so that's the extent of my remarks. Rose, I'm going to, if I close this, I should be able to get back to see Q&A.
Yeah. And I just wanted to say thank you so much, Jessica. Those are wonderful, awesome resources, and I love those stories. And I really appreciate, for those of you who don't know, Jessica is extremely busy and very much in demand for different presentations and things. So I was really pleased that you were able to join us.
Of course.
So thank you. And yeah, it was great to see you at our January statewide coordinating committee. We're having a May statewide coordinating committee coming up in the next couple of weeks. And I don't know if you're able to make it, but that'll be an opportunity where there will be a lot of people there.
I don't know about that. I need to at least know, I'd like to know the details on when and where and see if I can.
Well, that may be a good lead-in for a moment. Feel free to send in your questions, as I said, in the chat box on the right-hand side. If you want to send them to all participants or to me, Rose Clark, I can kind of facilitate the question asking. So send in your questions for Jessica there. And while we're waiting for some questions, I can point you to this, some info on the statewide coordinating committee. On your screen, you should see some details. Wednesday, May 4th, at the St. Paul campus. I was not able to find exactly where, but we can stay posted. You can contact myself or a regional executive director for more info. And Jessica, I know you talk a lot with Kathy Drager. She could point you in the right direction. Yes. Yeah. Yeah, that's some info. All work group members are invited. We're going to have an awesome conversation. This meeting is usually attended by board members and RSDP staff. But if there are work group members interested in coming, then you're welcome.
There's Kathy. She's on the phone. She's chatting. Linda has two great questions here. Rose, can I address these two questions?
Yeah, absolutely. If you want to read them out and then answer them so our phone folks can follow along.
So how can RSVP stories be shared via NCA? That is a terrific question. Well, and I'll say a couple of things about that. NCA is open to any submission from any person. So NCA, as you might imagine, a magazine would work. They have editorial meetings. We think about what kinds of issues are important that we want to seek a journalist to go cover. So one place to interact with NCA is simply to pitch a topic that you think needs coverage. You might basically pitch a story, and I should tell you a person to contact about that. There are really two. The editor of NCA is a man by the name of Todd Rubold. That's R-E-U-B-H-O-L-D, Todd. And you can find that on the NCA website, of course. So you can pitch ideas to NCA saying, you know what's an important issue that you need to be thinking about? Deep winter greenhouses or species migrating under climate change, or issues facing the boundary waters and how we think about national parks, forestry. Many of those issues have already been covered in NCA, but if you have an angle that you think is important that everybody needs to know about, and specifically something that you're doing that you want the whole world to know about, pitching to NCA is a great idea. There's also a voices section of NCA, which is an opinion piece. And there you directly submit short articles to NCA, and then they review them from an editorial point of view and think about whether or not they want to run them, just like any magazine would. But those are authored by scholars, by journalists, by decision makers, by practitioners. So those are submissions that you make directly to NCS. So of course you can also correspond with them in your pitch, and I've often pitched things to them, and then they say, oh, that would make a great voices piece. Why don't you write one? And then sometimes I found people to pass those voices ideas off onto others. Another way, yes, and then, sorry, those are my two ways. Pitch or write yourself and submit to voices. I describe I&E as collaborative, responsive, agile, and entrepreneurial. Is that the RSVPs have those attributes as well? Absolutely. As well as a regional context and a local and regional knowledge base. Can I say something about I&E's involvement at the local and regional scale? I&E has a number of projects I talked about, for example, the Minnesota Headwaters Fund. There are other ways in which a natural capital project is very involved in thinking about drinking water conservation and how that's affected by natural areas around the state of Minnesota. So there are a number of projects that we pursue that do directly engage Minnesota natural resources or Minnesota agriculture, or the Twin Cities or Duluth or other municipalities. In fact, one thing that has not yet been announced, but there's a project involving an exchange between Germany, and many of you might know about this, especially if you're engaged with CERTs or at all. There's a partnership with the German municipalities. There are going to be 5 selected cities across the state of Minnesota that are going to be partnered with German municipalities toward advancing renewable energy projects. Those cities are about to be announced. So that's an example. But importantly also, I&E does tend to look well beyond the state of Minnesota. And I talked about a number of global things or international things as an example. So I would say we're a resource for working on things in Minnesota, but the RSVPs are you have a lot more local and regional expertise probably than many of your orientation is even more local. So we'd be looking to you for knowledge around some of those local issues. Kathy says she's going to make sure I know the date and time. That said,
yeah, we have a comment.
Am I running out of time?
We have a comment. You go ahead, Jessica.
Oh, from Ken. Hi, Ken.
Yeah.
So I'm just going to read his. Should I read his comment?
Sure. Yeah, and then we'll transition over to Sara after that.
Great. Dusted, targeting the general population, so not just undergraduate, school teachers, school children, general population. This is something we do really well in Duluth. Need to train undergraduates and graduate students in outdoor and environmental education. Again, I think where we need to look to different parts of, this is my commentary, Jessica, we need to look to different parts of the state and different parts of the University of Minnesota campuses to contribute across the whole university system. Working with resource management from the perspective of nature-based tourism and its impact on parks, et cetera. Let's all work on this, Ken says.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty hot button issue right now, trying to increase appreciation for natural resources through engagement and tourism. Awesome approach. Cool. Well, thank you so much, Jessica. And I understand you have some later meetings. If you need to tag out, you can. But we'll go ahead and get started with Sara's presentation.
Thank you.
So thank you. Awesome. So Sara is the founder of Project Get Outdoors. She holds a degree in Natural Resources and Environmental Studies from the University of Minnesota Twin Cities, local. She has worked since 1994 as an environmental educator at various locations, including the Chippewa National Forest Resort Naturalist Program, Minnesota DNR Fisheries Maine Aquatic Program, the Bell Museum of Natural History, Eagle Bluff Environmental Learning Center, and Olmsted County Parks. Currently, Sara is the lead interpretive naturalist at Whitewater State Park in southeast Minnesota. She is the mother of Sage, Rose, and Jack, and enjoys spending her spare time outdoors with her family, kayaking, collecting agates, and exploring public lands. Sara has been involved with us for a number of years. How long have you been involved with RSDP, Sara? Uh-oh. Your sound is a little bit squeaky. Maybe, let's see, you might be able to call in if you follow the call-in number that is on the event info window. I can put it into the chat box for you. Sorry, everybody, for the hold up, but Sara has some awesome things to share with us. I'd like to get her connected. Aaron mentioned, has Sara turned into a rabbit? A little bit high and squeaky. I'll go ahead and share her slides right now, so those of you who are on the computer can take a look. For some background, I was excited to have Sara sharing because Allison Agresta, who was in my Conservation Corps position last year, was focused mainly for at least the beginning of her time on Project Get Outdoors, helping to train the trainers, so to speak, for engaging students and children in nature. I know that Linda and Aaron are both on. I don't know if you want to speak at all to some Project Go things that have happened in your areas. Linda, I've unmuted you. Are you able to share anything about the Project Go activities at the Northwest? Sara has called in. Sara, are you there?
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Oh, good.
There you are.
That is so embarrassing.
Oh, no worries. It's technology. There's always something that goes wrong, but I'm glad you've called in now.
Thank you. Okay, I'll jump to this because I know we're kind of running behind here. Yeah, I'm just going to whip through this presentation. I know some of the people have heard me talk before because a few years ago I presented at one of these webinars, I believe. So I'm just going to take you through our presentation that we put together as a board. Oh, did you want to talk more? Sorry.
Oh, just take your time. The end time of 12 o'clock is a little bit flexible for many. So
I know people want to go to lunch probably. I'm going to start seeing attendees dropping off like flies here. So our goal is to connect kids to the outdoors. So we're trying to facilitate outdoor experiences to develop healthy kids and increase environmental stewardship behaviors. And we do this working with local community organizations. We started in 2005, so we're going on our 11th year now, and we've offered programs in a variety of settings within communities. So this is some examples of locations. The key to these programs is working with partner organizations within these communities and then through local volunteers that we train and kind of equip with resources so that they can lead these programs. So we started in 2005. I was involved at the time, so maybe it wasn't 2000. It must have been around like 02, 03, 04, something like that, that I was on the RSVP for Southeast Minnesota. And at that time, Richard Louve's book, Last Child in the Woods, came out, talking about how we need to reconnect kids to nature, all the problems that are physically, mentally, spiritually facing our society because we're disconnected from nature, and then a ton of other issues as far as environmental goes. And we had a retreat with our RSVP group, and we were talking about environmental education. And one of the board members, who's a good friend of mine, is like, environmental education doesn't work. And his kids had gone through it in the 70s, and their friends, you know, nobody seems to care. And I said, well, that's what I went to school for, environmental education. How can you say it doesn't work? There's got to be a way that it can work. And when Lou's book came out and I read that, and his approach was, let's get them outside. Let's help them feel comfortable being outside and forming relationships with nature so they're aware of it and appreciate it before we start talking about environmental issues. And so that's kind of the concept that we've taken with Project Go. And the RSVP down here kicked in some money right away. I had to step off the board to be able to submit a proposal, and kicked in some money to pilot a concept. And so we tried it in Plainview with a youth center there where there's a lot of migrant children. There's a canning factory. And so the program had really good success in Plainview in 2005. A lot of media coverage, and other communities started asking how they could start a similar program in Winona, St. Charles, Rochester. And so it started to kind of snowball. And so we worked with the Parks and Trails Council of Minnesota under their 501c3 to become a nonprofit organization and bring together other people from the region that were interested in this concept, and eventually became our own nonprofit organization working to help communities start up these kinds of programs. And so it just kind of kept expanding over the years. I just threw in some different testimonials. This was a pediatrician from Mayo Clinic. So we've really had a lot of opportunity to pilot this in different ways, and so we've learned lessons through pretty much every site we've worked with. Some sites, our original goal was after-school programming that would be offered year-round so that kids would get seasonal experience, and so a lot of these sites would do like 6 weeks in the fall, 6 weeks in the winter, 6 weeks in the spring, 6 weeks in the summer. And usually the same kids going through the program for a year or two, so they're getting repeat seasonal outdoor experiences. So we have after-school sites, but then we started, we have resources like backpacks. I'll show you in a minute here. And we had people just wanting our backpacks and getting a quick training on how to use backpacks. So some sites just have backpacks that they're using. They're using them in different ways. Some of the different libraries, children's museums, parks, county parks down here have backpacks parents can check out and take home for a week and use it in their neighborhood and then bring it back. We have outreach sites where we've gone in and done like a parent ed training with different Head Starts. We did something with what's called Leap Corps, Learning Early Achieves Potential. It's a program through the Initiative Foundation down here, and they're all across southern Minnesota. 2 years ago, we trained all the Leap Corps members, and they each got a backpack, and they were working with Head Start sites and preschools across southern Minnesota. So that was a great opportunity to get them thinking about how they could add nature experiences into what they were doing. And then we started a daycare training this past year. That was quite a process, having to work through all the state requirements and licensing and certification so that I could be certified to train daycare providers on how to connect kids to nature. It was quite an ordeal, but we're all set up now, and that's been great. We've trained 2 daycare centers down here, and we've got other daycares requesting us to come in and do private trainings at their sites, so that's kind of a cool thing we're looking to expand. And then it says inactive sites. We had sites that started that got going gangbusters, and then after a year or two fizzled out, and we learned through those sites. So I kind of have a slide coming up that highlights some of those. I think my presentation just froze up. Oh, there it goes. So we work with over 100 partners. If you look at the local level within each community, usually there's a couple dozen partners within each community between the local school district, the city, the community action organizations and parks groups and conservation sportsmen's clubs, local businesses, and then it kind of advances up to regional, statewide, and even federal partnerships, and I'll highlight a couple of those in a second. We've created a toolkit, and RSDP was very supportive of helping us put together some of the components of this toolkit, and then we also got funding through the Minnesota State Lottery, the Environment and Natural Resources Trust Fund dollars. So we put together a handbook, backpacks, training DVD, and equipment trunks to help train community organizations and provide resources so that they can offer sustainable programs. And then, as we showed on the map, we've had over 50 sites, 20 different communities that we've worked with, so we've really tried this in a lot of different variations and kind of figured out what works best. And we're strictly funded through donations, grants, and fundraisers, but we're kind of working on a more sustainable strategy for the next couple years here, which I'll talk about in a second. So here's some of the things we've learned. Every community, no matter how tiny it is, has the resources it needs to sustain a program. And resources don't necessarily mean money, but the people, the green space, the equipment, the infrastructure to get a program started and make it sustainable. Every community can do this. You have to have local community partners, though. We tried in a few sites where we sent in interns, and they kind of infiltrated the community. They were an outsider, and those programs fizzled as soon as the internship was over. So it has to have local, obviously you guys know this, but local community partners and local residents who are active in the planning, active in helping to lead the activities, sharing their outdoor skills, and involving as many local people as possible, even just in the planning process. And we like to say at least 5 people. They don't have to be there working with the kids, but helping to plan and do the behind-the-scenes stuff. At least 5 to help share the load. We found that retired teachers are perfect for these kinds of after-school programs. They're so connected in the community. They're comfortable working with kids. They know how to communicate with parents. So retired teachers are great. And when you can work through the city or the school or a local youth organization like a Boys and Girls Club or a YMCA or a Latchkey program, you're more likely to have a long-term, more sustainable program. Originally when we started in Plainview, we were doing every day, Monday through Friday, and found out it was just too much nature, too much outside for these kids who really don't ever go outside. So we really recommend like 1 to 2 days a week. And the target age, which we found, 2nd through 4th graders, you can just have the biggest impact. They're so open-minded still and not afraid to get dirty. Their hormones aren't causing challenges yet, and they're just a lot easier, I guess, to impact at that age. And we're finding that these programs do work. They're making a difference, and I'll highlight that in a second too. So just a few charts because my board said we had too much text in here. So here's a chart for you. We usually operate under $30,000. And I just did our taxes yesterday, and it was $28,000 for last year. So it's a pretty meager budget we have. Contributions are coming from all different places, institutions, corporations, local community groups tend to sponsor the actual field trips and activities the kids are doing, and the bigger money helps us to get grants for staff or interns or things like that. So some of our different partners, kind of showing at the top the more local level partners, and then it works its way down to bigger regional and even federal partners that we have involved. And I just wanted to highlight one of the partnerships. We were really excited in 2013. We were able to partner with the Conservation Corps of Minnesota and Iowa to access AmeriCorps. They submit for AmeriCorps, and they do individual placements where they'll place AmeriCorps members at different sites throughout Minnesota, and we were lucky enough to be able to get AmeriCorps member. That was 2013. 2014, we have 2 Corps members. With the help of the RSDP up in the Northwest, working with Linda Kingery, we're able to help match AmeriCorps up for their site up there to do some Project Go stuff and other initiatives that they are working on connecting kids and families to nature. In 2015, we kind of bit off more than we could chew. We got 3 Corps members, and we had one in the metro area working with the Fish and Wildlife Service. They were housed out of an office space there, and kind of working on Project Go initiatives around the metro area while helping the Fish and Wildlife Service with some of their initiatives. So they helped this Kelsey, who was stationed up there last year, just was phenomenal with social media, graphic design, and that kind of stuff. So she helped put together a new website, create new literature. She did a monthly newsletter for us. She was able to work with 7 news sites in the metro area. She led 3 trainings, workshops, and 13 outreach events. So she reached over 2,000 people, and she was great with social media. So she was always constant on Facebook, Twittering, Pinterest, and reaching a lot of people through social media, which aren't even included in that number there. Come on, slide advance. Rochester, we had an AmeriCorps member for the first time that was stationed out of Olmsted County Public Health. So we don't own a facility, we don't have an office, and so we partner up, and so these partners were providing the office space and basically supervision as well. And so our Rochester Corps member was able to get a grant to put together some backpacks that the YMCA, the library, the Children's Museum, some of the county parks have, and those are the ones they're checking out, families can check out. She also did help assemble and create some of the training and resources for that daycare provider training we're now offering. and started working on a cultural awareness training for volunteers working at our sites. And she facilitated 3 training workshops, helped with 35 outreach events. So she reached, almost 2,000 people through just direct activities she was doing. And then some of the things the AmeriCorps that have been stationed up out of Crookston the last couple years have been able to assist with. A lot of cycling projects, bicycle rodeos, doing some outreach with the White Earth Indian Reservation. In 2014, I know Alyssa helped with some green space mapping out the parks, and helping with some nature play area projects. Also putting together a Let's Go Read program for libraries that ties in storybooks with nature activities. And then this is last in 2016 here, Allison helped with 16 different outreach events, reaching over 600 people. So pretty cool to see how when we partner up and share resources, we can really have a big impact. It's another testimonial from the Fish and Wildlife Service. They've been a key partner since we started in 2005. And one of the parents from a Chatfield program down here in southeast Minnesota. And the Conservation Corps of Minnesota. And then working with some of the different kind of low-income housing sites. This is Common Bond Communities, run a variety of low-income housing across the Midwest, and they have quite a strong presence around the metro area. And so one of the programs, 2013, our first AmeriCorps member helped to lead this, start up this program at Skyline Tower, which is right on I-94 and Lexington Avenue in St. Paul there. A lot of Somali families. So that was a neat project. So this just kind of shows how over the years we've been expanding in our reach of program sites and kids served and volunteers until 2014. So I was able to be really hands-on involved with Project Go and basically running it. And I took a full-time job with Minnesota State Parks a few years back, and we've struggled to try to bring somebody on, and it's really hard to find funding for people. We can fund, field trips for kids and projects for the kids to do, but when we're trying to fund a staff person, we have a challenge of finding the funds. So things have kind of been cutting down, being able to have less of a reach. AmeriCorps was a great thing because they were able to reach a lot of people and get a lot of cool projects off the ground, but it was hard for us to supervise. That's why we tried to partner with partner sites and kind of share the supervision. But in the end, we realized we have to have some full-time staff from here on out if we really want to be efficient and effective in what we're trying to do. As far as impact, what we're seeing, and we get testimonials from program leaders and parents that these programs are introducing kids to new skills, and that's helping them want to go outside. They're more interested in being outside because now they have skills that they want to take outside. And this helps to build lifelong connections to the outdoors, keeping them connected to nature throughout their lives. We see within the first few weeks, we see attitudes change, behaviors change. Kids are more comfortable being outside. They want to go outside. They're more engaged. They're asking more questions about what's out there. And program leaders, time and again, will say the same exact thing. These kids, they totally change within a few weeks. So our big goals for the coming years here, we're trying to increase capacity of our board to be able to operate sustainably and continue to expand geographically. We have requests from other states even, and we just don't have the capacity to meet the need. So our big goal is to try to raise enough funds to hire a full-time program director, and then we're working on developing a Project Go Leader Certification program. And I met with Margot Herman with U of M Extension a couple weeks ago down in Rochester and kind of talked about some ways we might be able to work with Extension on this. And then we've got some other colleges in our region interested in actually working this into college classes where students would actually go through this certification as part of the class they're taking. So kind of excited about that possibility. And we're focused on trying to build stronger partnerships with YMCAs, local city park and rec departments, community ed programs, and county public health offices. I think that's kind of the direction we're going to try to move forward through because there's just so much resources and infrastructure and support within those organizations, and they all recognize what we're doing as a high priority type of a program. And the daycare provider training has had a great feedback so far. So we're hoping to expand that and be able to maybe take that into other regions, and maybe there's an opportunity to train the trainer and have some other people out there around Minnesota leading these trainings to connect providers to resources to getting these little guys outside. This is just one of the little ones who, when she was 4 years old, I walked the trailer park in Plainview where we have a program. I run that program there, and I walked the trailer park. I got permission from the trailer park manager to hand out flyers and tell the families about the program. And this little one would always say, I want to go, when am I going to be big enough? And she had to wait till she was 5. And then she started coming when she was 5, and she came every year until she was 11. And actually that program hasn't run for a little over a year now because I had a baby and had to take a little time off. But she's in the program for many, many years, and we see that with a lot of these kids. The Plainview site's a little different because we do work with migrant kids, and we've been told that from the families that, you know, the little one has to come with the big one. That's who watches. The little sister is the big brother or the big sister. And so we have more of a age range from 5-year-olds up to 15-year-olds there. So kids can come for years, and it's been neat to watch them grow through the program. Okay, next slide. So this is the presentation we give when we're out in the public, so I didn't really change this slide so much. But things that we're looking for more board members or people that just want to help with committees at this point. We're working on fundraising and trying to find opportunities to collaborate on grants even. So if there's something going on in the different regions in Minnesota where Project Go might be a fit, we could work together on some grant opportunities. We would be really interested in that. And looking for more volunteers even around the state and other regions, specifically college students. We have in Winona State University and St. Mary's University both have Project Go student organizations on campus. And then those students go into the community and lead Project Go programs for kids. And that's a thing we could do all around Minnesota, working with different colleges. Help spreading the word through networks, newsletters. We're just trying to get the word out about what we're doing, and exploring opportunities to cost share staff as well, if there's potential for that anywhere. So resources we have to share, our website has like way too much information on it. Probably it's kind of information overload, but there's a ton of information on the website. All of our resources are downloadable. So we have the activity flipbook, activity calendar, and the calendar is something you can use year after year. It's not a dated calendar, but basically has every day of the year there's an outdoor nature activity idea, and we've been handing that out at our daycare trainings, and the daycare providers are so excited about it. Outdoor activity ideas book, which comes in the backpacks we provide, so it's got all these different ways you can use just basic, simple supplies like a rope, a bandana, a foam ball for outdoor games and activities to learn about nature. Just a ton of stuff. Our videos, our training videos are all online. The contents of our backpack if people want to make their own backpacks. So a lot of resources on our website. And then the cultural awareness training is still being developed. Our AmeriCorps from the Metro last year started to work on this and started assembling stuff, but I see this going through a big kind of evolution over the coming year. And we're asking people to share their stories. And we did have an intern who did interview a bunch of people at the U of M on campus there, and we just need to get those videos online. But looking at different cultures, how they connect to nature, what are the barriers to getting out to our parks, things to consider if you're working with you know, different communities that are non-Caucasian communities, things to consider when you're working with kids of color, I guess, in the outdoors. We have equipment trunks that our partner sites can check out for free. These have been great. So a variety of different trunks they can check out for a week or two and use with their kids. So yeah, that's it in a really fast nutshell. People can track me down, check out our website. We also have a Facebook page and a Pinterest page if you're on Pinterest at all. So that's all I got.
Thank you so much, Sarah. That was wonderful. I have special ties to outdoor education because I worked at an outdoor education camp in Oregon, an outdoor school. But there is so much good that can come from this, and I will pass on the recording of this to my fellow AmeriCorps folks this year.
Oh, thank you.
So I think they can get a lot out. Before we address any questions, if any of the attendees have questions, you can go ahead and enter it in the chat box. But I have a poll for the Conservation Corps as part of my requirements. I need to make sure that folks are learning things at the things that I help organize. So I'm going to start this poll that will pop up on your screen. And if you could fill in how much you learned and what content was most valuable to you, most useful or interesting. Real quick, 2 questions. Yeah. We have a note from Erin saying that she had to run, but she appreciates your work, Sara, and everything you've built through Project Get Outdoors.
Well, we're appreciative of her and the RSVP down here and, well, in the Northwest as well, and all their support.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing hearing the impact that you were able to have by partnering with these 3 different organizations who all have different networks and connections. That's great. I see a question or a comment from Linda. In the Northwest region, it was important to align these activities with the community-based efforts. Kind of what you were saying, how it needs to grow from the community. Public health priorities and efforts, Scouts, 4-H all provided an opportunity to include nature play and natural resource education. Thank you. I also shared in the chat box as you were talking, Sara, I recently read a blog post written by someone from the Oregon Outdoor School program I was a part of on the importance of outdoor education and kind of like what you said, the many benefits that come from involving kids in nature. Might be worth a read.
That was, where was that through?
In the chat box on the right-hand side of your screen.
Okay, let me pull that back up. I'm still in my polling box.
Yeah. There's a lot happening on that right-hand side. It's pretty powerful. In Oregon, or in the Portland area where I grew up, outdoor school is part of the 6th grade curriculum. So all 6th graders in the Portland area have to go to, or get to go to a week, preferably a week long with budget cuts. There was 3 days of outdoor education and in an outdoor setting where they were in cabins with folks from other schools and high school volunteers teaching them. So a lot of similar kind of concepts to what it sounds like Project Go does. And there was recently a bill passed in Oregon that making it a statewide curriculum piece. So it's pretty exciting that that's part of our education system out there.
Oregon's got it all figured out, man. They got like public, what is it, the whole shore of the coast is all public access?
Yeah, that's pretty wonderful. But here in Minnesota, you guys have the Land and Water, or Clean Water, Land and Legacy Fund. That is a wonderful resource.
Yeah, I just keep my fingers crossed that it, when it's up again for vote, it passes again.
Yeah, that's true. Awesome. Well, great. It looks like most people have finished the quiz, and I don't see any further questions, but I'm sure we might get more. There is a form on the webinar home site for your folks to submit questions or comments after the webinar, and then I can pass that on to Jessica and Sara. So if you have questions that come up later, go ahead and submit them there or email them to me. And Sara, I'll be sure to include links to all the resources that you mentioned on that webinar site as well. So we can see if you can get any interested parties to serve on the board or committee member.
Thank you.
Role. Yeah. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in and sticking with us through technical difficulties. It always happens, but it's but the net gain is great. So I appreciate hearing from everyone. And Sara, thank you so much.
Thanks for your
patience.
Webinar.
Yeah,
thanks for your patience with me. That was embarrassing. Yesterday
no
and today.
Our next webinar will be on May 19th. Wayne Gokin with River Explorers will be talking about that RSVP project, and the university partner is to be announced. but we're looking forward to that next webinar. And again, this webinar will be recorded and on the website. So thank you, everyone, and have a good rest of your Earth Week.
Thanks, Rose. Bye-bye.
Bye.